In the old days, when stories still walked among people and the forest listened to every word, two great villages stood on the edge of war. For years, they had lived side by side, sharing rivers, markets, and festivals. But peace is a fragile thing, and it takes only one spark for old grievances to return. A cow wandered into the wrong field. A child threw a stone. A proud elder refused to apologize. Soon, whispers turned into accusations, and accusations turned into preparations for war. Spears were sharpened. Drums were tested. Young warriors painted their faces and promised glory. Everyone believed the fighting was unavoidable. Everyone except Anansi. Anansi watched quietly from the edge of the village, his many eyes observing what others failed to see. He saw fear disguised as anger. He saw pride pretending to be courage. He saw leaders trapped by their own words. And Anansi smiled, because he knew something the warriors did not. Wars begin loudly, but they can end silently. The chiefs from both villages announced the day of battle. The sun would rise, and blood would fall. Songs were sung through the night. Mothers cried in secret. Old men remembered the last war and said nothing. And Anansi began his work, not with weapons, not with strength, but with stories. First, he visited the blacksmith. "Your spears are beautiful," Anansi said. The blacksmith beamed with pride. "But tell me," Anansi continued softly, "if everyone dies tomorrow, who will remember your skill?" The blacksmith paused. The thought lingered like smoke. Next, Anansi visited the drummer. "The rhythm is strong," he said, "strong enough to lead men into battle." The drummer nodded proudly. "But strong enough," Anansi whispered, "to lead them home instead." The drummer stopped playing. Then Anansi visited the warriors. He praised their strength. He admired their courage. And then he asked one simple question. "When the fighting ends, who will still be standing beside you?" Some laughed, some ignored him, but others began to think. That night, Anansi crossed the river into the enemy village. No one stopped him. No one noticed the small spider moving through the shadows. He spoke to the elders. He spoke to the young fighters. He told the same stories, not about enemies, but about consequences. He reminded them of fathers who never returned, fields left empty, children growing without names to remember. And slowly something shifted. Morning came. The warriors gathered. The air trembled with tension. Drums thundered. Spears glinted in the rising sun. Both armies stood facing each other, waiting, watching, breathing. And then nothing happened. No one moved. No one charged. The silence stretched longer than they expected, because every warrior now saw something new. The fear in the eyes opposite them looked exactly like their own. The chiefs shouted commands, but the warriors hesitated. Anansi stepped forward, small, almost invisible, yet somehow impossible to ignore. "You came to fight," he said, "but tell me, what will you win?" Anger rose, pride flared, but no one answered, because deep inside they already knew. Anansi did not ask them to surrender. He did not ask them to be weak. He simply told a story about two brothers who fought over land until neither had the strength left to work it. A story about a fire that burned so hot it destroyed both homes. A story everyone recognized because it was their own. One warrior lowered his spear, then another, and another. The sound of weapons touching the ground echoed louder than any war drum. The chiefs realized the battle was already over, without a single blow. Later, people would argue about what happened. Some said the warriors were cowards. Others said they were wise. But everyone agreed on one thing. Anansi had won without fighting. That evening, both villages shared food together. The drums played again, but this time for dancing. Children ran between fires, elders laughed, and Anansi watched quietly, because he understood something few ever learn. The greatest victories are the ones no one sees. From that day on, when people spoke about strength, they spoke a little more carefully, because strength was no longer just the power to fight. It was the power to stop fighting. And whenever tensions rose again, someone would always whisper, "Remember what Anansi did." And so the story lived on, not as a tale about war, but as a lesson about wisdom. Because sometimes the cleverest spider wins by making everyone else put their weapons down. If this story spoke to you, leave a like and subscribe so these African folktales continue to live on for the next generations. Until our next story, walk gently through the world, and may wisdom guide your path.